Everyone, you may be wondering, why does Bitcoin go up and down with other assets, even though it should not be correlated at all with them? And the answer is because everything in the financial world is linked to everything else in the financial world, regardless of whether there's a direct tie or not. So let me give you an example. Back when my daughter turned 16 and got her driver's license, I had the need for less money and more cars. So my family was going from two vehicles to three vehicles. And the total amount of money, which means stocks, bonds, or I guess stuff that could be turned into money, such as stocks and bonds and US dollar cash and Bitcoin, my demand for those things was slightly less because my demand for another car was slightly higher. So if I was the only buyer in the economy, one second. And I've since bought a lot more Bitcoin since then. But if I were the only buyer in the economy and the only thing in the economy was my two vehicles and my Bitcoin, then you would see a drop in the price of Bitcoin when I converted some of that Bitcoin to a third vehicle. And you might be thinking, but wait, those things have no correlation to each other. What does the sale of cars have to do with the price of Bitcoin? And the answer is because people are exchanging one for the other. They're buying cars with Bitcoin. In my case, now I subsequently bought a lot more Bitcoin after I did, after I bought a car with Bitcoin. But so I have more Bitcoin now than I did back then. But at the time, that is what I did in the moment before I had time to go liquidate other stuff and buy more Bitcoin. So that sort of thing is happening all over the world. Most of the things that affect the price of Bitcoin have to do with people's immediate preferences for different assets. So when people are scared, they go back to their roots, back to the US dollar. Now, does the US dollar, it doesn't make any sense to go back to the US dollar because that's the thing the government makes out of thin air. But when people are scared, they don't think rationally. They think, what can I get into that gives me the highest feeling of comfort? Now, for somebody who's been in Bitcoin a long time, like me, the the US dollar does not give me comfort. It gives me heartburn, but and Bitcoin gives me comfort. Bitcoin is the thing that when I hold it, I feel like, okay, I'm good. I can handle life's uncertainties. The uneasiness that comes with not knowing what life will throw at you, I feel better about that uneasiness if I have more Bitcoin. But most people are not as far into the journey as I am, which means for most people, their sense of uneasiness or their sense of how much comfort they have with the uncertainties of life goes up when they are holding US dollars. So when they get scared, they dump other things to get US dollars, which on one hand is rational because US dollars are what is guaranteed to be able to buy you groceries. Now, it buys you less groceries every single day, but it does buy you groceries relatively consistently. Whereas because Bitcoin is so early in its adoption cycle, it's the price is relatively volatile in US dollars. Now, one day that won't matter because groceries will be priced in Bitcoin. And so the most certain thing in the world will be to hold Bitcoin. But we're probably 10 or 20 years from that. We're at least 1 or 2 decades from that time. And in the interim time between now and when groceries are priced in Bitcoin, people will feel more comfortable when they hold something that is what they pay their rent in, which is US dollars, or what they pay their mortgage in, which is US dollars, or what they buy their groceries with, which is US dollars. So in the future, those things will all be priced in Bitcoin. But in the near term, for most people, those things are priced in US dollars. And because they're priced in US dollars, that is the thing people feel like they have to have in their hand, even if they know it's losing value by between 4% and 9%, or, on a bad year, as high as the low, teens, as far as how much it's losing value. They still know that, hey, I can buy groceries or I can pay my mortgage or I can pay my rent with these things called US dollars. Even if they're losing double digits of their value, over the course of a year, they know they can pay their mortgage next month with US dollars. That will probably only have lost a few percentage points or a couple percentage points of their value between now and when their mortgage is due. And in the case of Bitcoin, it's more volatile than that. It could have lost 10%, could have gained 10%, could have gained 20%, could have lost 20% in the near term. The near term is volatile. So, because everything is interconnected, when people panic and they're scared, like they are right now with the stock market, they sell things. And when they need more of something than Bitcoin, they sell Bitcoin to get more of that thing. And oftentimes for people is they panic and they want US dollars because don't know, they don't have the knowledge of Bitcoin sufficient for them to understand that Bitcoin is a more certain asset to own than US dollars. Even if Bitcoin is more volatile in the near term, it is far more certain and retains its value much better in the long term. But a lot of people don't think long term, they think short term. And so that's all they're focused on. Same with stocks and bonds and in the business world. In the business world, if suddenly everybody's scared of the stock market, they're not sure if they'll be able to do a stock issuance. They're not sure if they'll be able to fund, debt payments that are due on, corporate buildings. Then they sell what they can, not necessarily what they want to. And so they clear their balance sheet of stuff. They sell stocks, they sell bonds, they sell Bitcoin. They try to get into whatever the asset is that they know they will be able to pay debt payments with. And again, for a lot of people, that's the US dollar. In the future, it'll be Bitcoin. In the near term, it's US dollars. But even in spite of all that, Bitcoin keeps marching higher and higher and higher. And it keeps marching higher because enough people understand what Bitcoin is that they know that it is a safer bet to own Bitcoin than to own the US dollar. And enough people are in a position that they can handle the near term volatility so that they're comfortable holding Bitcoin, knowing that, look, I might have to pay, a contractor who's working on something for my house. I might have to pay them with Bitcoin that's 87,000 today, or 88,000. But hey, I can pay a contractor with Bitcoin that's 98,000 in a few weeks. And in the long term, it goes up. And in the long term, I'm winning more than I'm losing on that volatility, which means more often than not, it's up versus down. And over time, that smooths out. And over time, you're up more than you're down on Bitcoin, which means over time, it makes sense to hold more of your net worth in Bitcoin as compared to US dollars. So because everything's interlinked, lots of people, when Bitcoin dips, well, first of all, a lot of that is day trading and people just doing stupid stuff, trying to time the market, which cannot be done consistently. So most of those people are just losing money anyway. But in the near term, you get traders and speculators and all of that. In the medium term, you have a lot of people panic selling any asset based on the level of uncertainty they feel with the global economy or with their business plan or with their debt payments or anything else they have. And in the long term, assets tend to reflect the value of that asset. So Bitcoin is the highest value money in the world. Value as in the underlying value, the fundamental value of its monetary properties is better than gold, better than the US dollar, better than any of the other, 160 other fiat currencies. Fiat means made up currencies that other governments use. Bitcoin has better monetary properties than gold, fiat currencies, silver, literally anything else in the world. It is the scarcest thing that exists in the universe right now is Bitcoin. And because of that, the price eventually gets reflected in the price of Bitcoin because of that value. But in the near term, it goes up and down because people are emotionally driven creatures and they buy and sell things for emotional reasons, whether it's not rational or even if it is rational, they sell what they can, not what they want to. So they may have an extra house that they were renting out and they want to dump the house, but they can't sell it because interest rates are so high that they can't find a buyer because everybody's mortgage would be like 8 or 9%. And so they might want to sell a house, but they can't. So they sell Bitcoin instead. Or they might want to sell a car, but they can't. Or they can't get anywhere close to the price they think is reasonable. So the one thing that you can always sell that is always liquid for a virtually unlimited amount, including on nights and weekends, literally from your phone or from your BitKey device stored deep in cold storage somewhere at a safe bank safe deposit box or wherever you keep your valuables. However long it takes you to move Bitcoin around, which if it's secure should be longer than like real time. That's how fast you can get liquidity. That's how fast you can get in and out of any other currency in the world. But that comes with the downside of the fact that, yeah, when people panic on a Saturday night or something like that, they can sell Bitcoin, even if they can't sell anything else. And when in a world that is uncertain, people freak out sometimes. But in the long term, Bitcoin outperforms everything else on the planet. So it's just a matter of time. And it's just a matter of whether you can stomach the near term volatility to get the reward of the long term massive worldwide Bitcoin adoption. So it continues to be a great time to buy Bitcoin at a discount. And nothing leads me to believe that Bitcoin will not become the future monetary system of the world. It is just a matter of time. And investment rewards the patient. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks.